It has become a fun Friday, 9 o'clock hour for us on KCMO Talk Radio. This came up, I don't know, organically a couple of months ago. I said, let's start having folks into the studio on Friday for long-form conversations. We can, talk a little policy if that's relevant to what they do for a living. But if not, who cares? Let's just have some fun. Mike Thompson's here in the studio on KCMO. You know him well from his 35 years on TV in this town as a meteorologist. Now he's in the Kansas Senate. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Morning, Pete. I love your palatial new studios. What a view you have out here.
Hey, it's pretty nice, huh?
It is nice. And I love this new signal, 95.7. I can hear it all the way to Topeka when I'm going back and forth every day, and I just add because it used to drive me nuts on the old signal. I'd run out about Bonner Springs, and I'm trying to flip around and see if I could get it. No, this is great.
Well, thank you for that. It's been a big difference for us, and it's been a game changer. People know you probably from your 35 years in TV in this town. You're now in the Kansas Senate. But just your upbringing. I didn't realize that you were you're the pride of Burlington, Kansas.
I don't know if it's the pride.
It depends who you ask, right?
Exactly.
You and Christian Braun,
right,
who played at KU a couple of years ago. He's now in the NBA.
Right.
I can't think of anyone else that's a Burlington guy or gal.
There was a girl that was a couple years older than me that also ended up on television, and Susan Haight was her name. I can't remember what her TV name ended up being, but she ended up in San Francisco, and she was on the air for a while. So Burlington has produced a few.
How about that?
It's kind of wild.
TV
for a little town
folks.
with 1,200 people, I think, when I was growing up. Of course, we got Wolf Creek now, which, who knows what they're producing down there now with that.
Well, by the way, this 95.7 signal, it may get down to Burlington. I'd have to check.
I think it almost does.
Oh, that's
because
impressive.
we were running down not long ago, and I was I'm pretty sure at least Abito Junction where they sell the big cinnamon rolls.
John's fired up.
Yeah,
John loves it. He's fist pumping in there. That's the most excited I've seen him all morning. By the way,
that's America down there.
Oh man!
Gosh.
All right, so your career, 35 years here in Kansas City on the air. Like many of us in media, there's a winding road to get to where you end up.
Right.
You go to Oklahoma City, right?
Out of the Navy, yeah.
Out of the Navy.
Right.
So how long in the Navy?
I was 4 years active. Well, I had to sign for 6 so I could go through their meteorology schools. And Leanne and I were married, and so she put up with me being at sea for about the first 3 years of our marriage.
Wow.
And then I got out of the Navy, and we went to Oklahoma City really because of her. I got home. I was going to go home to Burlington. She was there, tired of being there. Said,
so are you both Burlington?
Yeah, we were dating in high school.
He's got his beautiful bride in the studio, by the way. So she's right here with him for the show. So that's great.
So we've been married 47 years, but
wow.
We dated in high school, and I went back to Burlington after I got off the aircraft carrier, and she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'd maybe hang around a week or two and then figure it out. She said, no, Monday you're going to go find a job.
Oh, that's great.
So we went down to Oklahoma City, and I applied at a private forecasting firm down there. And the guy who was interviewing us said, do you think you could do TV? And, I mean, this is just pure luck, right place at the right time.
What year is this?
This was 1979.
Okay.
And he said, do you think you could do TV? And I said, well, yeah, probably, because on the aircraft carrier, I was the only one in the weather office who would go down and do the crew brief on the closed-circuit TV studio. And so they took me over to one of the studios. I did an audition. They hired me like the next day. So I'd been out of the Navy less than a week and landed on television and didn't know anything about, being on TV. I knew weather, obviously. So the TV part was a little bit of a learning curve, but I worked in Oklahoma City for, a couple years, and then went to Charlotte, North Carolina. I worked at an NBC affiliate there, and then the opportunity opened up at Channel 5 over here, KCTV, when Fred Broski, who's been here forever, decided he didn't want to do the evenings anymore, and so I stepped in and filled in there. I was there for 9 years, and then when Dan Henry on Channel 4 decided he wanted to retire, 4 hired me away, and that was in 1980 or 1992.
Wow!
So I spent 27 years there at Fox. So it was a great career. I mean, almost just shy of 40 years on the air, and it was fun. But the TV industry's changed a lot.
It has
enormously, and. So I think I got in at a great time because in the 70s and early 80s it was the wild, wild west still. You could be very creative, but it's become very formulaic now and very top-down corporate consultant-driven. And so I think I got in at the right time, got out at the right time, and pleased to have my new little career here.
People don't realize this, but because media doesn't cover it properly, I think in part because they don't want to. Local news has many more problems, and I'm saying this selfishly, but it's also backed by data, than radio does.
Oh, yeah.
The radio listener is much younger than the local news viewer is today, and that's a fact.
We saw that trend. We saw a lot of trends that were troubling to me in the last probably 5 to 10 years of my career on television, and I've loved talk radio. It just, to me now, if you're not using talk radio as one of your sources of information, you are really missing out. Because I'll flip around when I get home from Topeka, and at night I'll flip around to all 4 channels, see how they're covering things, and it's just, I hate to be negative about my former career, or former people I worked with, but it's just I don't get anything out of it. Now, occasionally I'll get some little story here and there, a tidbit, but I don't know. I love this in-depth format, and you learn so much more. And there's so much more that people need to understand about what's going on.
Well, that's very true.
I mean, it's crazy.
Let me backtrack real quick, though, to Oklahoma. I spent a couple of years down there. You worked under the legendary Gary England.
Yes.
Who is a guy, I mean, he is the is it fair to say he's the godfather of modern-day meteorology because of the tornadoes down there and everything else? He was the man when it came to tornadoes. That whole state watched Gary England.
They did, and it was really a privilege to work with him. He taught me a lot. He really did, and he was a showman, but he was very smart, good forecaster, great with severe weather.
Yeah,
I mean that was really his forte. And we had the first Doppler radar in America on the air at that station, KWTV, with Gary. And boy, he had a long run. And now you have to genuflect when they say his name. He really is kind of a weather god. He was in the movie Twister.
Yes, he's in Twister. He's 84 now. He retired, I saw, just a few years ago. He's in Twister. And here's what I loved about watching him. I was there a couple of years, but we had a lot of tornado coverage then. He never overdid it on the air.
No.
He would calmly tell you a tornado is bearing down on your home without freaking you out. And I'm sure you had situations like that here, right?
Yeah, and I kind of tried to follow his lead. Pardon me. He did. I mean, he told me the first time I had to cover a tornado under Gary, he said, just go out there, take a deep breath, and just tell them the story. Tell them what's going on. And that worked. I mean, you don't want people panicking.
Correct, yeah.
You don't want them freaking out. And if they're frightened, they're going to make bad decisions about their own safety. So Gary, he was very, very good at it. And, he had developed a network of ham radio people and spotters.
Yeah.
We had the radar. We had the helicopters. We really had the perfect chasing setup and perfect coverage setup way back in the 1970s. And it was kind of frustrating to me to come to other markets and bigger markets, and we couldn't get those Doppler radars that we had in studio in Oklahoma City. Of course, it was down there. It was a necessity, really. And all the stations end up having their own Doppler radar. But it was important back then because we could control what storms we were looking at, control the analysis of the storm. It drove me nuts when the computers took over the analysis of the storms. And I do think that as a course of that, you're seeing a lot of lost art in storm analysis. Too much reliance on computers, which is why we're missing tornado warnings now or over-warning in situations where it's not warranted.
Yes, I think that is definitely happening. Mike Thompson's in studio. You know him well from his time on TV. We're going to take a quick break, come back. I have a couple more questions for him on the tornado front, but we also will get to what's going on in Topeka. The tax policy for the state is right now getting a ton of attention. Who's going to win out? Will they end up cutting your taxes? That's all coming up next with Mike Thompson on KCMO 95.7 FM. Well, I want to keep the conversation going with you here. I will get to some of the things happening in Topeka on the tax front, but we were just talking about your time in meteorology, of course, nearly a 40-year career, 35 here in Kansas City. You told me a very interesting story about Joplin in particular.
Right.
That tornado and the loss of life there was tremendous. I remember where I was. I was in Oklahoma. I'm sure you remember where you were. But you talk about now, oftentimes the Weather Service will force counties or force municipalities to send off warning signs when they don't need to be doing that. And I guess that had been happening in Joplin leading up to that tragic tornado over 10 years ago.
Right. In fact, Mike Smith, who's a meteorologist in Wichita, had written about this in a book called Warnings. But basically, the false alarm rate from the National Weather Service office in Springfield was something like 90% or better.
Wow.
And so over time, people just stopped paying attention to the warnings. They thought, oh, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so when that Joplin tornado happened, a lot of people didn't pay attention. They actually got that warning wrong, by the way, in the first place. And so as a result of that, people did lose their lives. And the Weather Service tried to overcorrect on that for a while, tried to pull back, but then they started creeping back into this habit of every thunderstorm gets its own warning. And after a while, again, for like a severe thunderstorm warning, for example, you get anesthetized to that. Yeah. I know at home, if there's severe I don't even pay attention to severe thunderstorm warning, and people should. And it should mean something. But the trouble is when you just put out warnings willy-nilly everywhere, it gets to be the boy cried wolf type situation. Mm-hmm. People just don't pay attention. That's a concern.
We're living through that in a lot of respects of our lives now, it seems, right?
In every respect of our life. Yeah.
Everything is about attention and trying to get you to turn on the TV or overreacting to things. And, you're right. We become kind of desensitized to the
Think
whole
about
thing.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, you can't go out.
Yeah.
You got to wear the mask, which never worked. And it's just the same deal. Mm-hmm. And it's just the same formula being used in different applications every time.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to Topeka. There's this tax battle going on right now.
Right.
We know the governor rolled out her tax plan a couple of weeks back, and it included grocery sales tax cuts. There were a lot of good tax cuts on there that you guys agree with.
Yeah.
The one thing that she does not want to do is any kind of income tax cut in Kansas. Right now, the top rate is 5.7%, and that's for anybody, just to be clear, that makes over $30,000 a year.
Right.
So it's a pretty low threshold to get to the top rate. You guys, Republicans, want to cut that rate to, 5.25?
5.25.
Okay.
Last year's tax package was 5.15. Actually, the Senate position started at 4.75. So 2 years ago, we had a great tax package. The House didn't want to go as low as we did. We negotiated up to the 5.15 last year, and then the governor vetoed it. Mm-hmm. Then she cherry-picked parts of our plan and starts campaigning around the state. She didn't want any tax cuts, no tax reform at all last year, okay? So then over the summer, she starts campaigning on this new tax plan, seeing that the philanthropic attitude toward the taxpayers is maybe a good thing going into a 2024 election, right?
Yeah, not for her, but obviously for you guys in the House.
Else.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to get on board. She'd already vetoed that tax plan last year. She's already vetoed our plan this year. So now we're up to a situation where she has vetoed our tax cut plan twice. And the single rate tax, actually it's dual rate. We have 0% for over 310,000 low-income Kansans who won't pay any income tax at all. And then the single rate, the beauty of that is, and you understand this as a young father, and as you increase your income, you work harder to pay your bills and pay for your family, the tax shouldn't take a bigger bite. And that's the problem with these graduated progressive taxes, where you jump into the next tax bracket. The single rate, you understand, you're just going to pay that single rate, and as it goes up, you're not being penalized for achievement, basically. And so it gives certainty. And there was a tax foundation study that said a lower flat income rate would promote long-term economic growth. We also index all of your tax deductions to inflation so that as inflation goes up, you get to take more of a deduction on your taxes. So the long-term growth for Kansas is putting more money back into your pockets because everybody makes a better economic decision about their own money than the government does, bottom line.
Mike Thompson's here. So, the governor was on this show a couple of weeks ago, and she basically made it sound like any income tax cut is not on the table. Right. She will not consider it. So you guys would have to override a veto.
Correct.
Are you close?
Close. I think we're within one vote, I believe.
Wow.
The House, I think, has the margin. The Senate is the question, whether we can encourage the last one or two people to flip their votes back. It's interesting. Some people last year voted one way, voted for the tax cut, and then at the last minute pulled that and reversed flow because they were getting some bad information. So we'll see. It'll all play out this next week.
So this will all be done or figured out in the next week?
Yeah, the veto override will, yes.
Wow.
I expect it in the House, the attempt on Tuesday. I expect the Senate, depending on how things go in the House, Wednesday or Thursday, so we'll see.
I think your best argument here is also the fact that the top rate in Kansas is right now such a low barrier for income. Married jointly couples, if it's over $60,000, you're paying the top rate.
Right.
That is not a very high threshold.
Well,
so anyone making over $60,000 in family income is going to get a tax cut.
Absolutely. And anybody who's I've been at the bottom of the spectrum. I've been much higher up the spectrum. And what was frustrating to me, I worked TV and radio for 20 years, almost 20 years. Leanne will attest to this, 15 hours a day. It was wearing me out, so I stopped doing the radio portion, and I didn't notice a difference because basically my income from radio was paying for that marginal tax increase. And it punishes you. And people who haven't gone up that scale and seen that situation don't seem to understand. And states where they have adopted this single rate tax are seeing more growth. Mm-hmm. They're seeing more people coming into the state. They always complain about the tax earners getting the biggest chunk of benefit. Well, they also pay a huge chunk in taxes. So they can use that to hire more people. These are small business owners that we need to be supporting. We do all these economic development type things, but none of them are as effective as giving people their own money back and letting them make the decisions about what to do with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big week coming up here in Topeka.
It will.
Wow. And it all starts, Tuesday?
Yeah. Well, we'll be back in session on Monday, but Tuesday, I think, is where they're going to take it up in the House, from what I understand.
Okay.
So, and then we'll see, if the House can't do it, then it doesn't make sense for the Senate to do it, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then we're just going to have to figure out what to do.
So, all right, you're up for re-election this year, Mike Thompson.
Correct.
How you feeling about all this in the next minute?
Yeah? Good. I know I'm one of the top targets of the Democrat Party. In fact, there was an article here that says I'm a thorn in their side. And I think that tells me I'm doing a good job. So I'm going to get out there. I bought a new pair of tennis shoes. I'm going to walk the 1,000 miles like I did last time, literally, and knock on doors and talk to people. I'm not going to take it for granted, but I'm working hard. I really am. And there's too many things that we still need to fix that I want to be a part of.
Well, we're glad you're there. It's a great second act for you, and we're grateful to have you as a friend of this show, Mike.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it.
He is Mike Thompson, state senator out of Shawnee, of course, a longtime meteorologist here in Kansas City, joining us for our featured Friday segment. Always great to have him on the show, and we'll be watching Topeka very closely next week.